Sounds good.
How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the Bot Podcast, where we interview movers, shakers, and innovators and talk all things conversational user interfaces. I'm your host, Chad Oda, and today we're very privileged to have Josh Barkan. Josh is the co-founder and CEO of Janus. Janus is an AI assistant that helps businesses deliver better conversational experiences. They do this by helping teams train AI, monitor bots for problems, in order to help quickly resolve and prevent business impacting incidents. Previously, Josh had launched several successful ventures in the mobile and messaging space, building standalone apps, as well as working with some of the largest telco carriers. So at that, Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So before we sort of roll into the more specific sort of chatbot heavy questions, I always like to sort of ask a more unique question based on our guest background and sort of experience.
Yeah.
So something really interesting that I saw about your background, you sort of were able to sort of take your passions, being art, mobile and music, and really apply that to your entrepreneurial career in a very successful way. So I was really curious, like, if you don't mind walking us through your sort of ideation process, because, I was looking at your background, it's like in music, in art and mobile, and then, in some of the applications that you have built, they're very much aligned to those things, and they have been, very successful. So just curious, like, how you go about, looking for new ventures to start, and what's that ideation process for you?
That's a really good question. So my background is not in computer science. It actually, I'm a classically trained musician. I studied for years throughout university and early childhood. I didn't really aspire to be a musician, but it was something that I was passionate about. And so, yes, the idea that you want to take what you love to do, and if you focus on your passions, then you can, make something out of it. Music's a bit of a tough go. They don't get you get the term starving artists. It's a tough go. But certainly, as I did get into tech, I was hoping to bring that passion in and see if I could build something viable. And so I would say that I've done a number of projects over the years, but the music tech projects were definitely fun. One of them was we built a massive multiplayer music game. And there was a larger goal. We wanted to, this was around when the iPhone was in its, early stages. And there was an opportunity to build something out there. And social music gaming was compelling. The problem was, I guess, with it is that we got set on this vision that we were going to really change the music business. And that's a really hard vision to execute on. And so, I to be honest, I just ended up not hating the music industry more. But it was great, and it was definitely rewarding to be able to do, to take something you love and try and build a viable business. We had a really strong community around those music games for a number of years, and how I ended up in sort of the conversational AI is a little bit different. It didn't go directly from music to conversational AI, but we ran a mobile app studio, and one of the last app that we built was called NewsGIF. And so we curated news stories, and we had algorithms that summarized the stories entirely in GIFs. And this was in 2015, and I guess the consumer behavior for both news consumption and mobile app consumption changed, and people weren't downloading apps as much anymore, and they certainly weren't downloading apps for news. So I read about the coming of the conversational experiences and thought that it would be a logical medium for our news format. And this was before Facebook hadn't even launched its Messenger bot platform yet. So I started playing around in Slack, and which did have a bot platform, and then just started doing experiments to understand what was possible and what wasn't. And incidentally, I met my co-founder in Janus because he was a musician. And that was actually, he had a lot of the technical skills that I didn't have, but we had a shared passion for music. And so we connected. And as we started to work together, I thought that that was actually going to be meaningful as we go on this journey together, that we, you know, that we would be able to relate to each other. And we'd have that, you know, culturally it would be a good fit for me. So it ended up that he's an amazing engineer, but we can relate to each other. So we still play music. We both play in bands, and we share a studio, a music recording studio together. So that's worked out really well.
Cool. No, Josh, I love it. I think that's incredibly encouraging, you know, to a lot of the entrepreneurs that are operating in the space today, right? It's an emergent technology. And I think a lot of people are trying to align their passions with the availability of conversational user interfaces. So I think that's really cool to hear. So rolling specifically to your last point, about Janus, let's talk specifically about that. And maybe you can tell us about the specific customer sort of market opportunity that Janus is addressing right now.
Yeah, so we initially we've been building Janus for some time, and it's been the bot space has been a bit of a wild west, right? You got a lot of people that are taking existing businesses and looking to augment that with chatbots and bring AI into their conversational experiences, and that's all over the place. And then you have people that are trying to build bot-specific businesses. They're trying to build, assistants. And, we've been building Janus incrementally through a series of experiments. So I think before I focus on who the current user base is, I'll explain how we got there. Initially we started and we were serving a developer crowd. So the people that were building with bot frameworks, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. Microsoft has one. There's one called BotKit, another one called BotPress. And as we were building, we let our developer friends play with what we're building. But they weren't getting as much value out of it. I used to, around 2018, I started hanging out in the Chatfuel community just to see what was going on there, because I had read a stat that the Facebook bot market was being dominated by Chatfuel and ManyChat. So I wanted to understand more about just what was going on. And I wasn't active in the community, I just scanning through it. And I kept seeing people talk about their challenges. And I said to my co-founder, I said, there's all of these people here and they have all of these problems, and Janus can solve their problems. and my partner's he's an engineer, and he's like, oh, it's Chatfuel. I'm not going to waste our time with Chatfuel. I'm like, yeah, but you've got a large audience here who have problems, and we can solve those problems for them today. And I convinced them to take a closer look at that market, which was people building experiences for Facebook Messenger, largely for lead generation, marketing, and customer service. And it was a sort of a very different than what we were used to with the engineering audience. And so that was in March of 2018 that we sort of released our first Janus for Chatfuel, and they loved it. They're like, thank you. They were grateful. And that was really motivating for us to sort of keep building. And then in the summer, ManyChat opened up an API, and there's just those doors opened up that were previously not available to us. But here was a market that had a lot of challenges because they were faced with limitations of their current platforms. They let other developers build hooks into those platforms. We had spent all that time beforehand building out those capabilities so that we could serve them day one. So that's our current market focus. That's like our one customer profile, but we're not just like we're not like a Chatfuel, ManyChat sort of focused company. when we think of Facebook and bots in the Facebook space, we're aligned with those two companies because it's a numbers game, and we don't have much of an interest in being a bot platform ourselves. Those guys have done a great job and continue to build that out, and so we're kind of there to fill voids that they can't fill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the way you guys approached the market was incredibly pragmatic. You sort of watched it evolve, sort of, it took a very, business centric focus to, what are the problems, and sort of develop solutions based upon that. And I think the, interesting thing, especially in any emergent technology, is the fact that, people have to build experiences based upon the limitations that the ecosystem currently presents. And I think specifically, alluding to the point you made that there are specific nuances in the chatbot space right now, where we see this one audience of, marketers building lead gen and some customer support facing bots, but they're not necessarily leveraging a lot of the technology that the enterprise space was leveraging, a lot of the NLP, sort of ML, more data driven bot experiences, and I think what ended up happening was that, sort of marketers, or that sort of cohort building on Chatfuel and ManyChat began to hit this wall with all these issues, right? It's like, okay, well, these rule-based platforms, I can't get any more out of it, right? So I think it was a very natural progression of saying, okay, well, let's look at the platforms and see what each can best do. And then you guys sort of saw that opportunity and said, okay, well, let's sort of integrate these two things. Maybe ManyChat is great from a marketing use case on the front end and creating these rule-based experiences, and then merging that with natural language processing to sort of fill in those gaps. So I find it very, it makes sense the way that you guys approach this, the problem.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, I mean, they're only going to know what's given to them, and so what they've been given to them is not what Google is presenting to them. What they're given is a very quick way to get a conversational experience into Facebook, and those guys have done a great job. Both ManyChat and Chatfuel make it super low friction. Easy to, they make it easy to onboard and get something up and running. But then there's so many possible use cases within those, customer service or sales or, there's so many scenarios that it's impossible for those platforms to serve every use case. And, unfortunately, there just isn't a perfect bot stack out there. All the really good stuff, like the hard technology that can solve problems for them, the AI, those companies don't have it. And it doesn't make sense for them to build it either, because they're not going to beat Google or Facebook or Amazon or IBM or Microsoft. It doesn't make sense for them. So we really look at them as the UI to the AI. They're the UI. They're like the car with all the bells and whistles, and the engine is underneath that is going to be developed by the big companies that have the resources to do that. So it's just a matter of Janus is helping them really enable the perfect bot stack. Great UI tools and marketing tools with the best sources of AI coming from the companies that are invested in them. And Google, they're not focused on that market. They're not targeting marketers or people into lead gen, or they're focused on, they're really good at selling into enterprise and developers. So hopefully, at least, fingers crossed, we can package that technology up and make it more accessible to people, and make it, really distill it down. That's the hard part. Is kind of make it, when I talk about accessibility, it's not just in the tools and making it easier to train or whatever. It's really making it understandable. Like how do you take these concepts and make it things like entities and context, which are like there's a whole language around that. There's a whole they're great products, but the guy who runs a restaurant chain, or the local coffee shop, or the real estate agent, they just don't know what to do with that. So I would say that is one of our big challenges, is how do you really take the technology that they want that's going to solve their problems, but enable it in a way for them that it's workable. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think sort of that education gap and also making it attractive, I don't think that's atypical. I think we sort of see that in every sort of emergent technology, right? It's like, how do we get people excited about these things that sometimes seem a little bit out there, and I think you guys are doing a good job, with putting out the content, because I remember when you guys had launched, and I remember you guys put out a few initial videos and I was watching them and I was like, man, where's the context management stuff? Because I sort of saw the market opportunity as well. And, our team actually built out like a custom integration between Dialogflow and ManyChat. And
oh, cool.
We were like super jazzed that we figured out context management. And then I was sort of waiting to see that with Janice, and you guys came out with all these videos on it. I was like, oh man, that's great. It's a platform. I don't know why we spent, like several days building out this thing when you guys had it. So yeah, I really do think it's an education gap right now, because, what I see, and, definitely I'd love to hear your opinion too, is I didn't really see the huge benefit of integrating rule-based with NLP at first, because it almost seemed like some people, were just doing it just for the sake of it having like small talk in there, but it was almost like they're creating two separate experiences, right? Because there was no context that was being shared, at least initially. And, then it's like, okay, well, if you have context management in the mix now it makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of interplay between the different components in that. And that's where I see like the majority of the value, but I guess that's just my opinion. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to it. First of all, I think it's really cool. I didn't know you built out a sort of an integration, and I think that's really smart, because it's different. With ManyChat, that audience in particular, I mean, currently they look at something like Dialogflow as, or most of them look at Dialogflow as, oh, I can make my bot more chatty or more conversational. And they're kind of, just working with keywords and creating rules around that seems to be, I guess it's an easy way to jump into it. It's like, it's a starting point. But I think it's an educational thing. You tell somebody, well, okay, you're using keywords, but if your user says, I want to buy shoes, I want to buy shoes, and then another user says, I want to buy shoes, can I get them by Friday, right? One is an intent to buy, and the other one is a customer service question, really. It's an FAQ. They want to buy shoes, but they have a question about shipping and delivery. So that tends to be, you really need to, so we're challenged with that too, is we do support context management, but it's really a matter of educating them that you have this limitation, and if you're ignoring it and saying we're just going to use keywords, then you're selling your customers short. It doesn't make for a great user experience. So the integration part, having data sharing between systems so that you can, set context and all that. That's important, but it's also how to make it, how to make that accessible and so that they can immediately see the benefits of that. And so from a content like from my side, I take on a lot of the content and do a lot of experimentation. And usually I find what's most effective is just showing the magic right away. Be like, look, this is the end result of what you get when you add AI into the mix. So they see it right away, and creating a very relatable use case for them that, if it's, if they're like restaurants are a big niche, for example. So it's like, okay, one of the things we're doing is we're going to just take the ManyChat restaurant template, and we're going to like inject AI into the whole thing and just show them what AI adds to that, the value that AI adds to something that they're already doing using the tools that they're already doing.
Yeah. No,
and then it's like a light bulb moment. And then after that, then they see, oh, how can I have that magic too? And then that's where the sort of the tutorials come in. But the integration part it's interesting. I have seen a couple of people do different integrations with it, and I think it's great. um, we look at integration more than just as the enabling the connection, but as a process. So, the big problem is that consumers don't have the patience for AI to learn. They don't. They come in, they're gonna. It doesn't matter if you have buttons and you've like spelled it out and said do this and do that. They ignore it. They just want to be, And you've seen people. They're like they'll disable the keyboard or they'll do anything to try and get the result that they want, but it's not what the user wants. What the user wants is to send messages.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we look at the integration of AI as a larger process, and that's what the tools that we built serve. So it's yes, make it easy to get connected and have that connection to do what you guys do, like have it share data and make the integration really tight, but also getting them from from on a path to automation where they can see some immediate results, right? See the immediate benefit or value of having AI in the mix and making that super easy. So, we've created some, dialogue flow pre-built agents that are tailored for ManyChat, and we did one for Chatfuel. So they can at least get the value, see that immediate value, but then have Janus help them along in that process. And that's where those tools like all the alerts and the ability to take over live and then train directly from the transcript. So they have using their actual conversational data and be like, oh, users saying that, okay, I'm going to make it easy for them to improve. And that's where I think a lot of the bot platforms get it wrong when they talk about hybrid human AI. They for some reason it sounds good on paper, having a hybrid human AI experience, but I don't know why they need to be completely separate. Why it needs to be just, choose between a bot and choose between live chat. What we've done is we've said, okay, let's fuse those together. If you're going to, if you're going to put the effort into chatting live, but you're not improving your automation in that process, then you're not reducing costs or working towards your automation goals. You're simply compensating for the limitations in the technology. If you can chat live and improve your automation in that process, then you're only maximizing the effort that you put into live chat. So little things like that, I think, are part of an overall arching goal of integrating AI into the process. Chat live is like live chat. Great, you need it. You want to retain your users. You can't just turn on a switch, and your consumers don't have the patience to learn for your bot to improve or the AI to learn. So you do need that. You need to be hands-on. But over time, the goal should be to have the bot or the AI take on more of the heavy lifting, whether it's customer service or marketing or whatever your use case is. So over time, Janus hopes that you'll get closer to your goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with pretty much everything you had said. And, your last points, about sort of having a more, I guess, consolidated, sort of cohesive, integrated approach of having this sort of hybrid AI model and training process. I think that's definitely the direction, many of the other players in the market are now sort of moving towards. At the enterprise level, we see that with some of the larger customer support platforms like HelpShift. And then we see, companies like Google's, their analytics platform beginning to integrate solutions like that. So you can continuously be training this bot, which makes a ton of sense. I think it's interesting how we all started off with like NLP specific bots. And then it was like, okay, these aren't working so good with all the use cases these large Fortune 500 companies tried to, execute on. And then what we see working very well is like these rule-based bots. And it's just like, that's sort of interesting, So now people are saying, okay, well, let's take what's working and now augment it, right? But what's the best approach to do that? And I think you guys have tapped into something that makes a whole lot of sense in the way of like, how do we optimize this experience over time in a way that actually makes sense? So
thank you.
I really love that. I was wondering if you don't mind sharing, maybe some of the initial success stories maybe you guys have with some of your clients that you guys had worked with, or any like wins maybe internally that you guys saw that were sort of like, oh man, I think we're onto something here. Like we're getting a lot of good feedback and things are moving forward.
Yeah. So a lot of the, I would say that a lot of the success that we've seen is with the platforms that we're partnered with. So, for example, we work with Chatfuel and we work with ManyChat, and when it's kind of on a larger or on an aggregate level.
Yeah.
People saying, "Oh, I can actually do what I need to do with this platform now, and I don't need to move to another platform." And I think that's a big misconception about those platforms, which is people think, "Oh, I'm going to use something like Chatfuel and prototype something because it's rule based and I can, create a flow for something, but then I'm going to move to something more sophisticated. I'm going to build out work with Microsoft, Azure, or the something." There's just this perceived value in working with something more robust, where Chatfuel has kind of positions itself as this prototype, like the place you get started. And so I think that a lot of this, the things that motivate us, or where we've seen success on a larger level, has been that people have realized that they can get the best of both. They can use that platform and build some seriously powerful experiences because they've made it easy to build out the experience, but they have the power on the back end. They have that engine. So I would say that that's been kind of a big success story for us. There's obviously there's little pockets of success, like people doing lead gen. I saw somebody sent, I can't remember the name offhand, but they said that they shared with the community that their default message was only triggered like less than 2% of the time, and a lot of that had to do with Janus. And so there's little pockets of like that from but they're all small. They're like small to medium-sized companies. They're
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right too. It's like we finally get this new sort of shiny car, and then it's like, okay, let's take it for a spin and see what it can do. And I think that's where we're very much at. Just if we look at the ecosystem as a whole, so I think giving it 6 months up to a year, I think we're going to start seeing some really, really fascinating things and some really compelling sort of business outcomes that a lot of these people right now that are sort of testing these things with. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I continue to see, you guys pop up every single place.
Sorry, I hope we're not overwhelming.
No, it's great. And, I think it's a sort of a voice of reason right now in the community, where I think there are still a lot of misconceptions. I think you pointed it out, where people still have this very like narrow view that it's like, Chatfuel and ManyChat are for, building simple things and for prototyping things, right? When in actuality, that's just simply not the case anymore.
Well, for sure. I have to be completely honest that I think, like you, and some of the stuff that you guys do, and there's a few others that I could probably count the number of people that are serious developers in the Chatfuel community, and that's a community of 70,000, and I can probably name everyone that is like seriously good engineers.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a golden opportunity for them. Like, I mean, we were able to sort of tap into that, but and other engineers can as well, which is that there's a large market of people that are building for Facebook, and both them, because they don't have the resources, they don't have IT infrastructure or teams or know anything about how to code frameworks. So there's them and the platform that they're using that have needs that real developers can solve. And so if you're an engineer and you have skills, there's some real opportunities in that market. Instead of going out and building a platform or saying, "Oh, forget Chatfuel, I can do better," because I hear that often. I'm going to build a better Chatfuel. Like, why bother? These guys have done a great job. They've built it so that it's that you can. There's an ecosystem. ManyChat's even done it, taken it a step further and opened up an API, and they're really encouraging and supportive of that. And that's where the opportunity is if you're thinking about Facebook bots and building meaningful solutions for that channel.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what you said sort of leads me to my next question here, is I think you're sort of alluding to the fact that, it's almost like the gold rush right now, right? You can sort of be the guy that sells the picks and shovels that sort of augments and is sort of a complementary service to what's already working a little bit. And, so I'm curious, like, what's your sort of vision for your company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I think it's interesting because we kind of came out of nowhere, and when we launched publicly, and we sort of were like in the Chatfield community with like sort of a powerful engineered solution that was ready for them, and people kind of thought we were like, we were just kind of a peripheral developer or building just for Chatfield, but that was just the logical entry point for us for the Messenger channel, and obviously same with ManyChat as well. The two combined, I don't know maybe the percentage, but it's got to be somewhere between 60 and 70, maybe higher.
Yeah, I believe it.
So that was just kind of a logical move, and we see them as almost like partners. The whole ecosystem, not just the companies building those platforms, but the people that are using them. They're like, for us, they're like our like a Janus kind of partner.
Yeah.
In both those communities, and we are, we're big believers in voice, so we'll be releasing some stuff there as well. And obviously, there's non-Facebook channel opportunities, not just for voice and devices, but the web as well. Like, there's Intercom and Drift, and we're looking at this is going to sound weird, but look, I've been in tech for a while. So back in the early 90s, you had CompuServe. It was how people got connected to the World Wide Web, right? It was a geeky product, right? AOL changed that. They made the internet accessible to everyone, right? And that was kind of, the rest was history for the internet, right? It suddenly grew, but AOL was sort of a catalyst to that. So the way I see a lot of, I see AI in particular and natural language processing and the sort of underlying technology, the whole bot space feels like the early days of the World Wide Web. And a lot of the AI is still, and I'm a geek at heart, but it's a geeky product, right? So, for us, when we think about big vision, and the market opportunity and the market and the audience that we're currently serving, where we do have a lot of users in a very short period of time, our big vision is to really be the AOL of AI. I know that sounds weird, but
I love it.
It's make AI more accessible to everyone, and so maybe it'll take a number of years to get there, but I'd love to see the mom and pop shop in the small town doing more business because we were able to bring AI from Microsoft to them, or just make it more accessible to them. That's the kind of goal.
Yeah, no, I think it makes complete sense. And, we look at any other sort of technological trend, right? Whether it be web or mobile or what have you, right? It's always sort of the trend where, you start out with something sort of nerdy and complex, and then companies come in and they sort of abstract the complexity out of it. And I see that you guys are doing a really good job with that because
we're trying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the case right now is, even with integrations such as Janus, managing context management in Dialogflow is still not fun, even for people that have been building bots on Dialogflow or with Microsoft Lewis. So I think some of these larger companies need to begin to think about what are more accessible ways to enable that functionality. And I think as we go down this path, it's sort of an inevitable thing that will occur. So I totally see the vision that you guys are aiming at.
I also, and on the same token, I think, we look at products like Slack, and we believe that Slack, at least what it represents, is a big part of how businesses will be run in the future. So Slack is still somewhat of a geeky product. It's command line driven, and the tech crowd was kind of the early adopters of that product. You have, that's everyone in the tech ecosystem is, use Slack, or, competing product like Microsoft Teams. I'm a big believer in, when we talk about vision and where we see things, those are what I see as the business operating systems of the future, right? They make a lot of sense. And again, like maybe they're not as accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of our challenges, is that, the pizza shop in the local town, or the restaurant chain, they may be slower to adopt Slack. So there's an opportunity for someone, is to make a Slack that's, more, maybe less, more mainstream. But Slack seems to be doing well too. So I don't know. They have 8 million daily active users. So that's
not too shabby, right?
Not too shabby. So maybe it's just a matter of time. But we're banking on that. We're banking. We could have built our own sort of experience.
Yeah.
And I'm just and we debate that all the time. Do we want to? Why Slack? What is the value for it? But I'm a big believer that in order for businesses to adopt AI or adopt some of these things, that the way to make it easy is to integrate it into their workflow, right? And make management of management of your customer experience a part of your workflow. It doesn't need to be this thing that lives over there, right? I mean, and it was also just kind of a natural launching pad for us. But I expect we'll be in Microsoft Teams at some point.
I was actually just about to ask you that, because that's a really good segue, because what we see at like the mid-market and enterprise level is that most of these companies are already leveraging Microsoft Teams or Slack, right? So it's like these companies are already very like conversational centric in a way, and it makes sense where Slack is sort of your back end almost, because these larger companies have already adopted it. So it's only natural to think, to the point you were alluding to, where it's like, in a time probably very soon, these mom and pop shops are going to be on Slack too, or Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of product model makes a lot of sense. These collaboration workspaces, they're great. I'm a huge believer in Slack, and I love it. We started with Slack because it happened to be just the most mature of the platforms. And it's interesting, some of the initial challenges that we faced when we got into this space was that we had to wait for not only the market to establish itself and realize that they needed, more than just simple rules to meet their plans and goals, but we had to wait for the platforms that we wanted to build out in to evolve as well. So there was a bunch of things that we wanted to do in Slack that we just couldn't do. And so we'd sit there and we'd watch them. They'd share their roadmap. And we'd be like, okay, they released it. Now we can do it. So, so it just happens to be the state of where we are as an industry. Yeah. It's still early stages. It's evolving. People are starting to understand more that, understand what AI's limitations are, what its capabilities are today. And you either believe that it's going to be a part of every business process in the future, and you embrace that, or you're skeptical. But I think that I'm a big believer in customer service, marketing, sales, and so it'll evolve. The space will evolve, and I think Janus's capabilities will evolve as well. So serving a need today, but those needs will change over time.
Cool. No, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how things evolve on your guys' roadmap as well. So sort of switching gears a little bit to the point you just made about, it's still early times.
Yeah.
It being early times, have you used like a chatbot or voice experience so far that you found really compelling and you actually thought, man, that was a great experience? Yeah. And I know guys like us that are in this space, probably tend to be a bit more critical about these user experiences. So
yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it's different for everybody, right? Like, what is considered good.
Right.
I look at sort of what is the utility, or what value does it add to to me, and as far as a good use case that was well executed and continues to provide value, so I haven't removed it. I just kind of use it. I think the Score, which is the Score they're like a big sports news company. They're a news company.
Yeah.
But it's purely focused on sports. I think those guys did a really good job. They launched it fairly early when there was a high likelihood of failure, right? Because people were sort of experimenting and didn't know it worked.
Right.
But I think they kind of nailed it really early on. They had a really good understanding of what works, and I think they just got it right. And they haven't really made any enhancements to that. And I still use it daily, and I find it to be useful. It's just the right information experience that was executed properly, and that's really what it is. It's an information experience. I think I've seen some really bad stuff too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely have to check that out. I have not heard about that, so I'm definitely curious to see how they sort of executed on that. So, sort of sticking with the topic of, sort of early times in the space. What are some current obstacles or challenges that you sort of see right now, in the conversation space, whether it be from a UX standpoint, development standpoint, integration standpoint, or, anywhere in between?
Well, I think there are a few obstacles and challenges. So I mentioned this before. I think that if you're focused on consumer audiences, I think that's the biggest challenge, is that these consumers just don't have the patience for AI to improve. They don't care. They don't get it. They want it now. They have false expectations, and really they shouldn't have any expectations. Like, you're putting this in front of them. It's got to meet their expectations. And if it doesn't, then you need to be able to deal with those limitations gracefully. So I think that's definitely that affects everybody. You and I, or, anyone that's in the industry, are much more, we're critical, but we're also more understanding. But, for all of this stuff to have mass adoption, right, to be like, part of everybody's, whatever they're using it for. They just don't. They need to be more. You can't expect them to be more patient. So that's definitely a challenge. But I think also, again, one of the problems that we're solving, which is a challenge, which is just accessibility of the technology and making that more. And with that, the third challenge being sort of education, which we talked about. I think it's severely lacking. I really do. It's disappointing. There's so many people that are in this space that are, talking about, what it is they're building or what it is they're working on. And there are some people that are doing the education, but it's just so fragmented, right? They're little, really good nuggets of solutions, but they're lost in comments in these Facebook communities. There's some really good stuff in YouTube, but somebody should just curate this stuff and pull it all together into sort of one meaningful resource. I haven't seen that. It's so easy to just get time sucked with trying to find the right stuff through YouTube. So
yeah,
I think that's a challenge, but an opportunity for somebody. Please, somebody curate the best YouTube stuff on AI and NLP and make that accessible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I pretty much agree with all your points. I think a lot of it, maybe is chalked up to just a function of time at this point. Time, and also to your point, how much more proactive and involved the community can be in actually educating to make these things a lot more accessible. And, in large part, that's essentially, why I had the motivation to start this podcast in the first place. To your point too, I was spending all this time trying to search Google, all these groups for best practices. And I was just maybe the best way is just to interview people that are sort of in the heat of battle right now, working on this stuff, working on cool stuff. to try and surface some of these best practices. So I hear you in the same exact boat.
There's some people, I was just going to say, there's some people that are providing useful information out there. It's just hard to access that information.
Yeah.
I find that on the educational side, we actually spend time educating people on how to use Slack or how to use Dialogflow or how to, or how to use Chatfuel or ManyChat with Dialogflow. Like it's really a lot of our time is spent educating, but it's all over the place. We're going to launch, I should mention this, is finally going to pull all this stuff together. Like we have YouTube videos and Medium content and a whole bunch of stuff. And we're actually building these micro communities, one for Chatfuel and one for ManyChat that provides, a sort of a unified experience for getting the solutions you need. But we're also building it on GitHub, these resources, so people can contribute to it. They can, it'll be more collaborative.
Cool.
People have solutions. So
can't wait to check that stuff out. I love it. So maybe sort of moving towards the future again. We talked about sort of the vision of your company, but like, what's your personal vision of sort of just the conversational space in general? Like, where do you see us in like 2 years, 5 years? Like, what's that sort of idealized vision you have?
These are all really good questions. I think that from the consumer side, I think that voice-enabled appliances and devices like the smart home, the smart kitchen, having Alexa or Google Assistant being integrated into your sort of daily routine is the future for sure. I mean, we're seeing it now. But it's just something that will continue. The AI will continue to improve. They become more useful. And on the business side, I just think that everyone should just keep doing what they're doing, continue on the path. And everybody wants the same thing. They want to integrate AI into every business process: sales, marketing, customer service, HR. I mean, everyone should just keep going on that path. It may take 5 or 10 years to get to this point that I call it delightful automation, because that should be the goal, right? It shouldn't be this frustrating experience where you notice the shortcomings of it. You shouldn't notice it, right? It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to get to a point where it is delightful more than it isn't. And it may take us a few years to get there, but I think everybody's on the right path. So that's what I think.
No, absolutely. I like the point you made where it's like delightful, automation. It's funny because I think the CEO of Assist, which is another chatbot, it's funny where he says it's not AI right now, it's EI, eventual intelligence.
That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was sort of similar the way you're thinking about it, but makes a whole lot of sense. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I
tell you one thing, Chad. It's like it's the unfortunate, or at least the biggest challenge is that people are putting so much. The people that are building these experiences, they're putting so much work and effort into making it great, and unfortunately, the consumers, at least, if you're building a consumer-focused experience, they tend not to focus on all the great things that you've done to help them. They focus on the things that it can't do. And that would be my one piece of advice for people in terms of conversational design is just keep it really focused on what it can do. And when the user wants to get off track or tries to break it or test it, instead of just defaulting to, sorry, I can't do that, or I don't understand, turn it into a positive, right? So focus on what it is that it can do, and here are the things I can do to help you right away. Or, some of the things we do, if people send our bots a message and it doesn't, falls back to a default, instead of making it a negative, we turn it into a positive, and we just respond, got it, thanks for your message. So just that in itself is a small little piece of delight for the consumer. They don't think, they're not focused on the limitation of what you built. It becomes more of just an acknowledgement that you received their message, and that in itself creates this emotional delight that people, they don't focus on the negative.
Definitely. No, you actually transitioned us to the next question I was going to ask you. I'm going to ask you
Oh,
about best practices. So that was a great lead into that. Yeah. So I was curious, like, if you have any other best practices that maybe you've seen other people doing, or you've seen work for yourself and for some of your clients. Could be anything from the UX to like integrations to pretty much wherever that you've seen things work.
um, yeah, I mean, we do best practices. Oh God, there's so many. Um, yeah, I think well. So I mentioned one of them, and again, I think it's important to just focus on the try and turn the negative into a positive.
Yeah.
Keep your bot focused. Don't try and build a bot that does too many things. If it does, you're better off having a limited set of capabilities, making that clear up front to the user so they know what they're getting into. If they, anticipate things that they, that you might say to other bots to try and break it, like, you know, what's the weather, or, all the things like that, and come up with kind of clever responses for that. So that I find that the little things, the little details like that are thoughtful and people will appreciate them. What else? Don't forget the obvious stuff, right? Like if people are going to send your bot emojis, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's important to, like, the don't leave anything out that's obvious. My other suggestion is, at least if you're building for Facebook, try and not use the Messenger inbox, the Facebook inbox. It was great, it was acceptable before bots were in the mix, but now that once you have a bot in the mix, it changes everything. And I'm not saying you should use our solution. I'm just saying look to some other solution to be able to manage your conversational experiences outside of Facebook. So, ManyChat has something. I know Chatfuel is building something. Other best practices. I think don't just rely on buttons, and people like to message. So, be mindful of that. Like you should have both. The buttons are good. They're guides, and they may be what you want because you want to funnel them to a certain goal or whatever, but users, it's not necessarily what users want. So I think Dashbot once put out a stat that something like less than 40% of people want to click on buttons. So might as well give users what they want, which is they want to message you, and then if you can you should handle that, use that scenario, and then you'll engage the other 60% of the people. So that's I would think that's it, and build something useful, right? Like I would say that's another thing. Like, don't be afraid to experiment, but look at other products that are successful and think, does it make sense for the conversational interface? What is the value that it brings? If it doesn't bring value, then don't try and, do it for the sake of saying, oh, it doesn't exist as a bot. So, all that. But
no, all great.
That's for your viewers.
No. I think those are all great best practices, because I think there's like a level of simplicity right now that I think a lot of people are missing. Where it's just like people. I think there's a mentality, and this is just common for every technology. It's like, if we build it, they will come. And then as things get more mature, it's like, oh yeah, well maybe we should have been using like the same design approach we were using to build mobile apps and do the research on our persona and the actual business case. And I think a lot of those simple things are necessary. To your point, a lot of your best practices, it's really a lot of best practices we're taking from other things, and we can adopt it to the chatbot space. But then obviously too, there are some more granular specific ones, like make sure to try and make it pleasant. If there's like some sort of like scope, some sort of message that's outside the scope of the chatbot, I think you're absolutely on point with that. But
somebody asked me, here's a good tip. Somebody asked me the other day, actually they posted in a group. They said, I built a bot. How do I get my first 1,000 users for my bot? And I said to them, focus on, identify a problem for a particular niche. And let's say it's, and think about how your solution is going to solve the problem for them. And if it does, then you need to demonstrate that, and you need to find them. And where do you find them? They're in the communities like you're in right now. Like if you built a solution that makes dating better through a bot or a conversational experience, go find all these dating communities on Facebook, join them, show them the magic, show them immediately the value that it's going to bring. It's going to make it easier to date, or whatever the solution you're bringing to them is. And don't ask for anything in return.
Yeah.
Just show it to them. Don't ask for anything in return. You'll get your first 1,000 users.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I appreciate all the best practices and insights. I think they're really helpful for, not only people just starting, but people that are like, have built bots and can apply these things to improve them. So that being said, I sort of want to pass the floor back to you. So if you have any updates you want to share, or where people can find you and learn more, or maybe if you're going to be speaking at any upcoming conferences, let everyone know.
Yeah. So we've just been heads down. Like to be honest, we're focusing on just been listening to our users and getting feedback and building it out. The best way to sort of engage with us and meet other users that are sort of benefiting from some of the things we're doing, whether it's the educational content that we're putting out, the features that we're building on Janus, is just to join our Facebook community. So just search for the Janus community. That's and I think it's just that's kind of like our where we like to send people, because it gives them an opportunity to sort of engage with us. What we started doing is, when people say, how do I do this, or how do I do that? If they message us through like they can message us and slot through Janus, they can ask Janus and then somebody can jump in. We kind of push them into the community on Facebook because we want to share the solution with everybody, so everybody benefits from it. So that's, I would say that's a good way. And there's a lot of sort of people that are, share our vision for some of the things that I've said about the future of conversational AI. So you'll meet other people like that as well. But yeah, we've just mostly been heads down, focused on product for now.
Cool. No, yeah, I'll definitely have to check out the group. As to all the listeners, definitely check out Janus's group. I look forward to seeing a lot of the stuff you guys are putting out. Just out of curiosity, are you going to be attending Chatbot Summit next week in Berlin?
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, I won't be there. But of course, I'd love to meet you in person.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So it's not going to be that one, but we're gonna make it happen. So
cool.
We've got a couple of things on the horizon that we're looking at, and there are a bunch of these conferences. Yeah. So it's just a matter of I kind of wish I went to the ManyChat one. That one looked like a lot of fun. I just from what I got from it, I know it was like focused on their platform.
Yeah.
I just think they did such a really good job putting it together. And what I was really impressed with most was the energy, the kind of there was this, it kind of felt like a multi-level marketing kind of event where everyone's so, like a Tony Robbins type thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that's what you need. I think that the bot space, and I know we're both members of the bots group, and I think we went through sort of a period of kind of disillusionment where people were like, oh, this is not what it was all hyped up to be. And there's a kind of a lot of negativity about it, and pessimism, and it was like, no, this isn't pessimism. This is the reality. The hype cycle is over. This has got a lot of promise. You just need to be patient. It's not going to happen immediately. And I think that what ManyChat has done really well is they've just created this aura of positivity around it, and it's energizing I think if you're in the space building product, I think that's a really good model to look at as success, is just how to build community around your product and get your user base energized and excited about the future, and just listen to your users. So we try and do that. I think they've done a good job.
Definitely. Absolutely. So before I let you go, I always like to ask this question to all the people that are on the podcast, especially, being in an ecosystem where there's a lot of uncertainty sometimes, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you inspired?
It's a great question. I have to say that we're fortunate. We've we get a lot of really good positive feedback, and that's motivating. So our users love Janus. They do, and they share it. We have a lot of advocates for our product, because it's solving problems for them, and that brings me. There's nothing more that motivates me than building. Like through my entire career, even like the music stuff that I built originally or for years ago. You know, I was just so glad that to build a product that not only that I loved, and you got to love your product, right? If you're building a product and you don't love it, you just get out of it. Don't do it. So you got to love and use your own product. And we use our product the way our customers use our product, right? So exactly the same way. So we're building features for ourselves that will make our lives better. And then we release those features to our users. And if we like it, then we feel good about them. They like it. And then when they like it and they talk about it and they share it and they're, you know, organic advocates, it's really the most gratifying experience. There's nothing better than building a product that people love. So that motivates me. And also watching communities, like like watching other people helping each other succeed, and that and coming up with solutions to problems and being creative and not asking for anything in return, but just sort of believing in it and the whole attitude is really encouraging, right? As soon as you see there's like pessimism or, you know, it's like, oh, AI, it sucks. It's got a long way to go. You know, you hear that. It's like, no, keep scrolling. Like,
yeah,
that isn't what's going to motivate you. That's only going to deter you. So hang out with the people and the communities that have that positivity.
Absolutely. I couldn't resonate more with that statement. But, you know, Josh, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. We'll definitely have you come back again. Can't wait to see what's in store for Janus. And
Right.
we'll definitely be keeping a lookout for any, you know, upcoming feature releases. So thanks for jumping on.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And
Absolutely. Take it
I
easy.
enjoyed it. Speak soon.